Welcome to the Open Police Commission meeting for June 18th. And we'd like to welcome everyone here, all of the commission members, the executive of this service, and also anyone listening in on the live stream. We'll call the meeting to order at 5:32. And just looking at the minutes from May 21st, 2020. From our last open meeting, is there anything that needs to be changed or added? Hearing none, Mr. Rodich has made a motion to accept the minutes, and Mrs. Campbell has seconded it. All in favor? Passed. Thank you. Moving on to number 3, standing items. Chief McGrogan is going to give us a police budget update.
So on the budget, I can report that we're in a healthy positive variance situation. A lot of it is due to COVID actually, so reduced court time, reduced training travel, reduced overtime, just the way we've redeployed our resources. So it's really affected, I guess, our expense side of the ledger, and as a result, we're going to have a healthy positive variance this year if things continue.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the Office of the Chief reports.
Okay, thank you. I'll start off just a quick update on a couple of things. As we all know, COVID-19 continues to change, and I don't want to call it evolve. It's actually hopefully devolving, but of course, as an organization, we have to continue to switch. As you know, Alberta announced phase 2 on Tuesday to begin on the Friday, so it was a scramble for us to really look at how it will affect our operations. We met with the senior leadership team on Tuesday and kind of went over some of the adjustments that we've made to the service, and a lot of it we're going to keep in place. We have brought some of the units back to work, so our major crime unit are back in the building. Some of our clerical staff, our police records clerks are back. So we're slowly bringing people back, but we're still mindful that this could not be over yet. So I'd say we're at about 50% capacity in the building, and our patrols still remain. We've had no diagnosed cases on the service. So we've done pretty well there. So we just continue to, I guess, adjust as the community adjusts to the changes. I will tell you that the chiefs have been meeting, the Alberta chiefs, on a regular basis through the whole COVID thing, about the different things that we've been experiencing, and most recently with some of the issues that have occurred socially in relation to perceptions of policing. The minister has announced a review of the Police Act, which the Alberta chiefs have been recommending since actually 2016, recognizing that the Police Act is broken and needs repair. So therefore, that process has started. Inspector West will be sitting on the steering committee in relation to those changes. I don't know if he knows that yet, but congratulations, Inspector West, for the hard work you're about to do in relation to that. Cadet class, as most of you know, we graduated 7 police cadets that went through training. It started in January. We got through the COVID thing through different means, a lot of electronic classroom stuff. We got together, following all the guidelines in relation to PPE and social distancing to get through most of the control tactics and psychomotor skill training like firearm and driving and all that kind of thing. So they're out now. They came back. We hired the 7, all 7 of the cadets that were basically hired to replace retired and leaving members. And they're all assigned now to patrol crews after a week or so of orientation in relation to some other stuff. And they're on the street now. They're with their FTOs, and they look like a really excellent group. Probably the most success we've had in a cadet class yet, as far as getting everybody through and everybody looking like they're top notch. So we're really excited about what we've got there. The Gordo Leadership Legacy Scholarship awards were nominated and handed out by the service, and Mr. Meidinger represented the Police Commission. We handed out 23 scholarships to grade 6 kids in the community. It was really nice to kind of normalize something. So basically, it's a highlight for me because these kids are so excited to get these scholarships. Although the monetary value isn't high, it's quite an honor for them to receive a scholarship for, their teachers nominate them for emulating the core values of the police service in their particular EPIC classes. So it's always excellent, and Mrs. Earl attended to assist in socially distancing and handing out the certificates, and Mr. Meidinger was there as well, so it was really good. He helped us, he saved our backstop at one point. It was about to blow away in the wind, but he saved it. Also, I think what is a really neat thing is the Board of Trustees of Medicine Hat School District 76 gave us an award for partnerships in their school system. So it's the name of it here, Friends of Education. So they recognize the Medicine Hat Police Service. Kind of comes at a very nice time, because as we know, some of the talk in the States and even in Canada in places talking about, why are there cops in schools, and they want cops out of schools, but I think we're experiencing the opposite here. The school boards, districts are glad that we're in the schools. It's a great relationship building time, and even the scholarship recipients would talk about all of the school resource officers by name, and it's probably one of the best opportunities we have to build positive relationships with the kids. So great relationship, and just really thankful that the school district recognized the work that our team is doing, led by Sergeant Darlene Garrick. So really good work there. So having said that, as you can see, Inspector McGough isn't here. So Inspector West is going to give his administrative services report, followed by support services, and then the good inspector,
Do you foresee a date when the front of the police station will be open again?
Great question. So when we met on Tuesday, we talked about what it's going to look like. So we're matching, I guess, City Hall's opening date of the 29th of June. There's a few things that we have to get in place as far as our front desk and the call center, getting our staff back at the front, and so we've kind of lined it up for the 29th of June. Good question. Is there any other questions I'm sure I didn't ask before I turn it over? Dr. West?
Thanks, Chief. Through the chairs, I'll just start off with administrative services highlights in the training unit. So training pretty much was still at a standstill as far as sending people. We have courses and our in-service courses, other than we did get some essential firearms qualifications done with the restrictions in place. So our firearms folks were creative doing that. But the big training project was obviously, and the Chief touched on it, was the cadet class. So the cadet class, COVID came right in the middle of it. So under some pretty extraordinary circumstances, our crew was able to pull it off, right down to the graduation that we did with, following all the protocols and orders from Alberta Health Services. So we're very proud of that, and we, in fact, the creativity they had to use to get through firearms control tactics, the virtual classroom and all that stuff, and they did it on the fly and they got it done right. So we actually had an inspector's compliment for our training staff on that. So great highlight for training. And I'll jump ahead to information and technology section, and I mentioned it at the last meeting, but our IT section, live streaming this meeting, our virtual desktops that they've kept running, our virtual conference rooms that they've had up and running. So they've just been, and yet they've still managed to get some of their regular business done. We had a major upgrade of our report management system. So that was upgraded to, it's called RMS 8, and we went from 7 to 8. But a lot of work hours went into that, and they still managed to get that done despite all the distractions and extra work that COVID caused. So a lot of great work again done from our IT section. The information management section, this one, so our clerical staff throughout COVID, most of them, including the supervisor, were working from home almost exclusively. And so we've learned a lot of lessons throughout the last couple of months on paperless workflows and some other efficiencies that were discovered. And we found that, they were just productive working from home as in the office. However, we've also discovered at the same time there's a couple of key positions where we're going to bring them back as the workload for officers starts to increase, but generally very successful work from home program there. And that was pretty much it for administrative services. I'm going to jump over to filling in for Inspector McGough to support services highlights. And one of the things I really wanted to talk to you about was the Regional Priority Crimes Unit. So we had a couple of additional members added to that with the help of Alert funding. And so they've been going out into the regions and working more on the property crime. So much like our organized crime section, they're working the region and they've had some great, really great files. One of them I'd just like to draw your attention to is the last bullet point on page 16, sort of at the top there. On May 13th, 2020, they concluded a stolen property investigation that led to the arrest out in Manyberry. So very peaceful. We don't hear much news about Manyberries, but there was some criminals who had moved into the community and going throughout and actually stealing copper wire from compressor stations, which, you know, when you think about that, that's interference with, you know, critical infrastructure in some cases. And they recovered several hundred feet of copper wire. So this is, you know, it's a commodity for criminals. If they can get their hands on it, it's easily exchanged for cash. And there's some new provincial laws in place to have some of the brokers ask a few questions on that. But a great file and a real impact on that community out there in Manyberries.
When did that start, Inspector?
Sorry?
The RPC, when did it start?
I think we got up and running early April, or
Okay, so
mid-April. Yeah, it's fairly new. So we've added an IDENT member. So Jeff Unraw is now an IDENT member funded by Alert with that RPC unit. So now we've got an IDENT person who can go out into the region and start to collect evidence on those property crimes. So that's a really big impact to the region and a big help to the RCMP with some of these more complex files. And just with regards to our major crime section, so one of the things that's been going on for a couple of months is they are working on one very complex sexual assault file with multiple victims and continue to make headway and gather evidence on that file. And down at the bottom for our Safe Family Intervention Team, you'll see that, you know, it was sort of predictive. I think a lot of law enforcement saw this coming, that with COVID, the restrictions, the added stress to households, the financial stress that we'd see a sort of rise in domestic disputes. And as you can see by the numbers, we did see that. So, and that concludes both the administrative services highlights as well as the support services highlights. Unless anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Inspector West.
Thank you. Just from operations, I wanted to start off by going over our weekly intelligence meeting. So at the beginning of the patrol report on page 10, I summarized the month's report. So each week we meet as a group. It's myself, the patrol supervisor, and our service analyst, and we go over crime trends for the week. And it's been very, very effective. So it gives our patrol members who are out on the street something to do in their proactive time or when they're not responding to calls for service. So I've added a list here on some of the houses that we focused on for the month of May, some of the suspicious activity and the traffic related offenses. So this isn't a complete list. There are houses that we don't put on here for certain reasons, but I'm very impressed with the work. Some of these houses have been shut down and removed from the list completely. I think we get a lot of feedback from neighborhoods and a lot of use of our crime app. I'm very happy with the first house listed actually on Vista Drive. There's a problem, a drug house, lots of concerns from the neighborhood. I know I was contacted, I believe the chief was as well. So just some of the tenacious police officers that we had took it upon themselves to sit in front of these houses and really check people coming and going. And that house in particular was able to be shut down and those people moved from the location, an excellent job. Just moving into the patrol highlight, there's really one file I wanted to focus on page 12. So on May 23rd of this year, it was a Sunday morning, we had a tragic accident. It was a motor vehicle collision where we had the death of an 83-year-old female. It was completely an accident, nothing criminal about it, but I just wanted to speak to the excellent job that our members that were on patrols, the supervisor that was working that day, and really our VA unit did. It was tragic, a horrible scene. I think there's still trauma from the neighbors and kind of the victims and family members in that area. Terrible, terrible accident. But we come together when we have tragic scenes like this, and I think our members did an excellent job, and our VA unit continues to provide supports to the families of that tragic accident. So we do have things in place, mental health supports here in the service, which is absolutely critical. Our members took those steps to ensure that they were healthy, and some of these members will be receiving an award in the next few days. So I'm just very pleased with the way that file, although it was a tragic file, the way that we dealt with it and were able to provide supports to the neighborhood. And then lastly, for patrols, I just wanted to go over mental health calls. It's not listed on the report here, but last month we attended to 111 mental health calls for service. So you've likely heard nationally and internationally that there's some concerns with police attending to a lot of these calls. So based on some of that concern, we are reviewing what we go to. But there is a lot of high risk for some of these calls and a lot of unknown risk. So in June, of course, we had it was really a negotiated standoff for someone that was struggling with complex needs downtown. So we called a member in and they were there for 4 hours. There was no use of force, but it was just the time that our members took to really speak to that person. And it was mediated, negotiated successfully after 4 hours, but no use of force was used. But this person that was there, we've dealt with him on several occasions and can be very, very violent, and we've had to use force in the past, which is tragic. But based on all of these things, the chief has tasked me with looking at our PAC team, which is our police and crisis team, and our ACT team, which is our addictions team, and looking at a new model. So we kind of have a straw dog model here to operationalize our PAC team, so to have them more on the street and dealing with some people with some higher needs in the community. So I don't want to speak about it too much because we haven't talked to all the stakeholders yet, but I'm excited for what the future looks like when it comes to dealing people with complex needs and some of our concerns that we have with some of the higher users of our service in the community. So we're very alive to the issues nationally and internationally, and I think when this rolls out, it'll be a great program. And then lastly, I just wanted to speak on page 13 to Bylaw. So if you look at the bottom of page 13, Bylaw was quite busy in May. They had 404 complaints in May, 171 animal complaints. And this kind of came up at the beginning of COVID in mid-March to April. Our numbers are still high, 19 aggressive dogs and 14 of them off leash, but it's about seasonal what we see year to year. So Bylaw has been patrolling the parks and trails 6 hours a day on our ATV, and some of the other officers are driving through them and having lots of education with people with dogs in the area. So I think it's been successful. We haven't had any serious injuries as of late, and we're going to have Bylaw continue to do that over the summer months. That's really the highlights from operations, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Yeah, through the chair. Inspector Scone, I think it's under your report. Last year we had, and previous years, we've had different bike patrols or foot patrols in downtown. Obviously with summer creeping into reality here, questions I'm getting around, are we doing the same as we did last year? We're gonna have the foot patrol segment again, and just, people really appreciate, one or the other, or depending on where the needs are, obviously, of the bike patrols and foot patrol, but the public relations wise are very positive typically too, so just curious where we are on that.
Yeah, I know the chief spoke to the chamber about this very issue, and I've spoken to the CCDA. No, we won't have a specialized unit this year, and it's really due to COVID partially and some of our resources. But when we have extra resources like they've had over the past few weekends, there will be members down there. So there has been members who are trained on HVRT or our mountain bikes have been downtown and will continue to do so when we have the extra resources. And there has been a lot of members on foot patrol in the downtown, but we don't have a specialized unit this year. We really bolstered patrols at the start of COVID because we were unsure how it would affect us, if we'd have any officers affected. But as the chief reported a few minutes ago, we've had nobody infected thus far, but we still want to ensure that we have the resources in patrols should we get an infection throughout the course of the summer. So we're very alive to the issues downtown. It's always number one on our proactive activities, the downtown core. We need to have a presence there. There's always one officer assigned to Area 1, which includes the downtown core, and we'll revisit it next year. So there will be a presence there, but it won't be a dedicated presence all of the year.
Okay, thank you.
So if I could add to that, it's quite a regular occurrence right now for us to be having our patrol people go down and walk the block, or even take a bike and go ride it. Our bike riders that have done the downtown riding. So there's been lots of activity downtown. One of the areas, I guess, where we were short so many members and we just trained our cadets, so we've got 7 cadets with 7 field training officers right now, and it really kind of, because they're not ready to go on the street, it's really limited our ability to staff the downtown area this summer. But we're still making it a priority. And I had a very articulate young lady ask me a number of questions yesterday, and I haven't heard this one before. But she asked if our presence may deter some people from using the downtown area, probably in light of some of the social things. I never really thought of it that way. And I don't think so. I thought it was a good question. It made me think from a different perspective. But we're still paying it as much attention as we can. But we just didn't have the resources. And then COVID, the way it kind of rolled out, we just couldn't do it.
Just supplementary, maybe a different issue. Did you have a question on the same thing? No, I thought your hand up.
Different.
Okay, I just kudos to the police app again. I know people who, more and more people are coming to understand the app, its presence and its utility, and I know, and it's just anecdotal. I know somebody that used it to send in a suspicious scenario, and they had very quick and immediate feedback and follow-up, and they were just so impressed. And I just want to take the opportunity to say it is such a great thing. And when people use it and get that kind of response, they're going to tell, I mean, they told me, but they're going to tell a lot of other people. So it just bodes well, and it presents to the public that it's not just a piece of technology that we put out there to get information, but there's response to it. And I was really pleased to hear that. And it was, I guess coming from the person I heard it from, it went over so positively that I can imagine they told hundreds of people about it. So that's good for us.
Can I just add to that? Should we just promote it a little bit more on Twitter and Facebook? Just say, don't forget the app and so on and so forth, just to get it out in the public more? Because I totally agree with.
I've done it every week for the past year.
Okay.
I did it this
Maybe I
morning.
missed it, okay.
So we roll it out a lot.
Okay, good, that's great.
Yeah.
Do you know how many people have actually downloaded it?
Last time I checked, it was near 6,000. But
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's good.
Yeah, that's great.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it's huge.
Julie, this is
I have a question about the problem houses, or however you phrase them diplomatically here. Problem houses, yes. I know that you can't disclose operational details, I understand that. But I wonder, a lot of people have a great deal of problem understanding, and I mean, to some extent, I do too, because they're so complex, the problems. Have a great deal of understanding why the police can't do something to help them, especially if it's close to their house or in their neighborhood, or their children are afraid, or whatever the case may be. That it takes so long. It just seems like we have police, we have a country with law and order. We're supposed to be protecting people, and yet these things can kind of go on and on. Now, I know that you do everything you possibly can. But is there some way we can help people understand without talking about the confidential details?
Yeah, I mean, we did a big release on it last year, but maybe it's time to do it again. Part of the problems we have, everyone has rights, even people that we deal with frequently. So there's one house I can think of not far from my residence that we've done 2 or 3 search warrants on. It's a drug house that bring people to and from, and they come into custody. It's dealt with through the court system, they're released, and they continue that behavior. So there is processes through SCAN to shut houses down, but it's very arduous, very labor intensive. It becomes more and more difficult if somebody owns a house, and there's 2 houses on here where the person who owns the house is part of the issues. So the court system and the Criminal Code of Canada is designed to protect residences or dwelling house. So it's very difficult for us you can do warrants through the court system, but to take a house or seize a house can take a year or more to do. But we're very alive to the problem. I think all of us have had residences near us that have been problem houses. We get feedback all the time. We encourage use of the mobile app for it because it goes right to our supervisors. So I think we're alive to it, but it's a good suggestion that we re-release some of our problem house, what we want from the public. But every time I meet someone from the public, I encourage them to use the app, use the mobile app. Every time that you see what you feel is a drug transaction or suspicious activity, let us know. Because then it pops up on our crime map. We're able to assign more officers to that area during their proactive time. And that's what shuts it down. And I know of 2 that have been shut down and moved in the last month. So we want to continue that, and I think it's incredibly important to do.
And a big part of that is citizen participation.
Totally.
We just had one on Markwick Drive where the neighbor was gathering as much intel as us, and it was extremely helpful. So, it's a community problem. It's not just a police problem. It's everybody's problem, and we got to work together on them. And there's some people. We probably have 20 some active. Usually it's around 20, 23 active kind of problem houses. And it's tough to get to them all, but I can tell you that, as Brent mentioned earlier in his report, we have members that are on those houses and doing everything they can within the parameters of the law, right? So, again, being respectful of people's charter and all those other pieces. So it's complex at times, but we're aggressively on it.
Yeah, and I mean, I have absolute faith that you are, I know that. People just don't understand. I think of that Aberdeen one, like it went on and on and on and on. People feel like they have to move rather than the people being moved. And I know you do everything you can. I just wondered if there was a way that we could help people understand the complexity. So they didn't think we were just sort of, they know you're not ignoring them, but that they just don't get why it can go on and on.
We did a big release approximately a year ago.
Yeah.
I can review that again tomorrow and perhaps re-release it.
Yeah, great. Thanks very much.
You mentioned 111 mental health calls in the last month. Is that fairly typical for this time of year, or is that up during COVID? Or what have you
That's
noticed?
about average. We get about 1,300 calls, mental health related calls a year, so that's about average.
Hi. Anything else? That is it for the Office of the Chief, and there's no new business. There are no action items. And just want to announce to anybody who is on the live stream that we've noticed that this is valuable, and our plan would be to continue to live stream these meetings, even when it is open to the public, so that anybody who wants to access this information can. So, just so you know that. Upcoming meetings, our next open meeting will be July 16th at 6 p.m. and then August 20th at 6 p.m. And I will adjourn the meeting at 6:01.